Recording. So welcome everyone to today's session of Sustainability Open Space. My name is Robert Stewart. Hi. I'm from the International Business Program at TAMK. And so we are working with the Learning Lab, and we have created this program called Sustainability Open Space. And we want to create a discussion forum to give people a chance to participate in the evolution of sustainability topics. So from our previous session, we got a lot of requests that we cover the COVID-19 situation. So that's what we want to talk about here today. Sustainability and how does this affect COVID-19? So yeah, and why don't my teammates introduce themselves too? Go ahead, Hamika.
Yeah. Hi. Hello, everybody. I'm Hemaka Gunatilaka. I'm a first-year student studying a bachelor's degree in environmental engineering at the Tampere University of Applied Sciences. And I'm happy to be with you all together with my team. And over to you, Davide. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Davide Vesentini, also one of the facilitators of this group. And as Hemaka and Ali, I'm a first-year student in environmental engineering. And now Ali will introduce himself and what we are going to do today.
We don't have your voice.
My bad. Hello, guys. My name is Ali Mahadli, also first-year environmental engineering students as my colleagues here. And I shall quickly go over what we're going to be doing today. So I shall stop my video, and Hemaka, if you can screen share the Padlet.
Yeah.
So we'll go ahead and turn our videos off for now. And yes. You can also mute your mic until you're ready to speak up. So this way we conserve the Wi-Fi. So go ahead and turn your videos off now, and Ollie is going to guide you through what we'll do.
So since this is a creative space, we decided that we'll mix a little Padlet with the Zoom meetings. So Padlet is very easy to use. It's what you can see in front of you now. We started out with the facilitating questions, so you guys can kind of direct your thoughts on what we'll be talking about and how to direct them. On the right side, you should be able to see like a help box. There's a help station on the upper right corner. Please leave any comments if you have any questions concerning how to use Padlet or what to do. The way the meeting will go is as follows. We have 3 topics to discuss. One is self-sufficiency, one is social sustainability, and the other is COVID on the environment. If you just simply click on the photo of the topic, it will guide you into the chat discussion. And inside, you'll be able to see comments that we have already posted and comments from other people that think are like important ideas to discuss. So please feel free to just simply click on the lower right corner to write a new post. You can either write your new post or just comment on the post already written. And also please feel free, and we of course encourage this, to like or dislike posts or comments. That way we can know what people would like to discuss further and whatnot. So I shall shift it back to Hemaka, for he shall start self-sufficiency for us.
And one thing before you go ahead and start. So if you check the group chat, you can find the link to Padlet.
Yes, that too.
So this is a very open discussion. So we want to encourage you to go ahead and add your perspective, your comment, your personal experience. So don't be shy to add that. And if you don't feel like speaking up, that's also why we have this Padlet. So you can go ahead and add your comment there too, and we'll go ahead and read it for everyone.
Yep. Is everyone comfortable with this?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. Oh, we have some messages on the chat. Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. Okay. So self-sufficiency. Well, we are all facing a deeply unfortunate time, as we all know, and most of the global system has changed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So here today, we will have some questions that will support our discussion regarding the global economic situation, sustainability, and its recovery. So please like, dislike, and comment your thoughts on each question regarding this. And we have our guest, engineer Meryl Gunatilaka, to share some of his outlook on the matter now.
Shall I start, Hemaka?
Yes, go ahead. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Meryl. I'm working for the government of Sri Lanka as an additional secretary for the Power and Energy Ministry. I'm happy to join the Sustainable Open Space this session on how has the COVID-19 global pandemic changed the world. So at the outset, let me briefly tell certain things which I can outline the perspective of the developing world in general and about Sri Lanka in particular. At the outset, let me outline the Sri Lanka situation at the moment. Of course, this is my personal capacity. I'm speaking today and not as an official of the government of Sri Lanka. Where the country is now facing an unprecedented crisis situation with regard to the economy, society, and also the environment. In the context of past 3 decades, the buzzword for us is globalization in place of localization. Developing countries like Sri Lanka had to depend on many imports rather than local production. So with this COVID-19 epidemic, as world is now almost at a standstill, we will face very serious economic and social consequences. I hope sound is okay. Or
Yes, sound is okay. Thank you.
okay. So with this economic terms, we have no exports and we need to import many items which we have abundant to produce locally. Furthermore, essential items such as medicine, milk powder, and machinery, spare parts, etc., needs to be imported, resulting in a huge balance of payment problems for the economy. On the other hand, for an example, Sri Lanka has the world's best quality graphite and rubber. But we do not produce simple items such as pencils and erasers for our school children, as cheaper products were imported merely from China and India. Even in the agricultural sector, our local papaya and oranges were of very high quality, but were completely destroyed due to the new imported varieties of GMC seeds. These GMC seeds have a very high yield, but of rather poor quality. So these are the small things that which needs attention of the world. In the social aspect, when we were children, we thought that the developed world is the best and can withstand any situation under the sun, as they have the power, wealth, and the resources. However, it has now been proved that no amount of money will not save us during such an epidemic unless otherwise the entire mankind get together and work towards a peaceful and sustainable world. In the agricultural sector also, the government, to my knowledge, has taken a policy decision right now to encourage agriculture at all levels, from small household towards a large farmland. This is to achieve self-sufficiency in agriculture, which is essential because the food is the basic item that any human being needs for survival. In conclusion, I wanted to say that this beautiful planet Earth, where we all were born and bred, will never be the same again for a considerable period of time. With the mandatory mask and social distance stipulated by the new social norms, at least for a few years, will take away our human emotional aspect from the mankind. This will undoubtedly have very serious repercussions on our much essential social interaction. This social interaction is more essential for Homo sapiens, that we are a highly social animal species on Earth. So these are the very few points which I wanted you to interact and ponder. And thank you very much for listening. Please stay safe and thank you.
Thank you for your participation.
Yep, thank you very much. And I
Yeah,
think
thank you for coming.
Thank you.
We
I'll
got,
be here. Okay.
Yep, we got some quite an insightful description of what's coming from a different part of the world from where we are. I think some people have joined in a little later, so if you all just scroll up on the chat, you will find a link. Okay, the link is just there. Ali just posted it, and you go on it and click on the self-sufficiency picture, and it'll take you to the questions and the discussion forum that we'll be having. Yeah. If anyone is having any ideas, please feel free to speak up. Yeah.
Tampere, if you can please share the Padlet for the people who don't
Will do.
have it open.
Yeah, will do. There we go. So this is the Padlet, the link, and you click on this one, the self-sufficiency, and it takes you right here.
Yeah, so that was a really interesting perspective on what's happening globally with the coronavirus and how it's interacting with globalization. So we heard about how countries that are import dependent are now finding out that these supplies cannot be brought in. And many businesses depend on globalization, but even they may not have known that their overseas partner had to get parts from another country, which now they cannot receive those. And especially with food security, this could be very risky.
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, go ahead.
Wow, fantastic. Thank you. And thank you for this great sharing about your country. It was very interesting. I am an impact entrepreneur and I work with developing countries on a thermal energy solution that is built locally. And we exist since 8 years now. And what COVID changed for us is that we were, how can I say, somewhere in a corner, surviving as entrepreneur. And since our solution is built locally and is affordable for vulnerable populations, since a month we are receiving tons of demands. So this change, which is of course a tragedy, but it kind of shaked everything, and the kind of boxes inside which people were used to think and see things. And a decentralized, powerful source of energy seemed to be an utopia or something like that. And suddenly it becomes very possible. So yeah, it was just to answer a little bit, or to the first guest.
How do you feel that a sense of urgency changes the business landscape in this type of sustainability business?
What do you mean?
Does the sense of urgency that the COVID-19 situation is changing the world, people's lifestyles, is this increasing demand for such sustainable products?
Yeah. It increases the demand, the sense of, well, I am constantly between developing countries and Europe, and I can see that the sense of emergency is not the same. Europeans are threatened in their comfort, whereas other countries it's a life or death threat. So it's very interesting to see the Europeans, big agencies, setting up new plans and grants and supports very quickly. If we speak about Finland, they were extremely responsive in a very fast way. When the president of the US said, okay, we are not supporting WHO, then Finland the day after announced that, okay, we are increasing the support. This is going like on a pretty fast pace. So yeah, there is more demand, but there is also more demand in Europe for things that were considered not that relevant.
Okay.
I refer to eco-villages, for example.
Do you think that we're doing enough right now?
No,
Okay.
absolutely not.
What do you feel?
Well, but you know me, Robert.
No, this is for everyone as well.
Okay, sorry.
That is interesting.
But
What do you? Yeah.
Eva, what do you believe is needed if we're not doing enough? What would be the most effective first action?
It depends, in a general way, it's hard to say, but we could imagine that a massive cooperation could start to happen. It's very much a top-down approach still. So, for example, everything that is reinforcing the neighborhood, the relocalization, and so on, could be, in my opinion, urgently valorized and supported. What's in my neighborhood, And so that's one thing. I think we should have these spaces as you have today, daily, not once in a month. Like, this is top emergency for whole humanity. So there are so many things to be discussed, and to understand each other and to be able to have constructive dialogues. So yeah.
Yeah, I think Timo also has put some comments on the Padlet, as you can see. Does anyone have any outlook of this?
Just to comment, I just threw in some ideas that we can maybe continue on, or we can come up with other ones.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Hemika.
Yeah. Okay. Which health cases?
Why don't you read it out loud for us
I
all
think
to hear?
we will start from the beginning. So
Okay.
so we're talking about like capitalism in question, and yeah, I think definitely capitalism is in question right now, because all the supply chains are facing a big traumatic experience, and I think yeah, Timo has commented saying the crisis has certainly pointed out weakness, especially related to resilience in global capitalism. And economic interrelations are probably necessary for fostering extended periods of peace between countries, like in the European Union. Does aiming for economic self sufficiency or self reliance undermine this in the long run? I think that's a very interesting and important question. That's, yeah, in my opinion, it might up to a certain point for sure. But are we going to the extreme like we went with capitalism now, or are we going to build like a sustainable future? I think that's the question, where it's a soft spot in between capitalism and a completely maybe self-sufficient system.
And if I may comment, when I reflect on capitalism, and at least coming from the United States, I see capitalism as it has been used quite aggressively. And so also that has kind of created an incentive where it's more profitable to exploit nature, natural resources, humans. So we can see that aggressive capitalism has caused a lot of damages in the world. But I would also say there must be a balance between self-sufficiency and globalization, because not all nations are the same. Nations have different resources and capacities, and they must learn how to sustainably use their resources and produce renewable resources that they can rely on. But of course, not all materials are going to come from one nation. So we need to create ways in which it does not leave the world vulnerable to such supply chain disruptions as we are beginning to see these days during the COVID-19 situation.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a good time to step back and reflect and reevaluate what we're doing. Are these practices sustainable? I think the evidence is showing us not quite. Excuse me. Could you please mute your microphone if you're the one playing the nice violin? Thank you so much. All right. What does everyone else think?
Yeah, I think please feel free to speak about anything.
I have the. Sorry.
Please go ahead.
Sorry. Yes, I have the cello in another room, but
no problem.
I wanted to say yes. I understand what you mentioned about capitalism, and I make the difference between what's toxic and what's not toxic. Capitalism is what we do with it. So without any idealism here or being naive, I think that there is an emergency on defining what's sustainable, because as we have discussed in the Sustainability and Impact Club several times, often companies are just following what's required by the law, and they define themselves as sustainable. And it's not enough. And they can continue to be very toxic And if it's not with what they produce, it can also be the way they manage their teams, you know, and the people. We all know that there is a very high suicide rates in many fields, and this is also connected to sustainability, in my opinion. So what's key here is to be able to engage and define an ethics or agree on definitions and find the right tools in order to every country to decide how they want to survive, take the next step, etc. I don't think we are going to go back to what it was. It's impossible, and there are many amazing things that we don't want to let go.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Where do you think the responsibility lies to create these changes or policies? Anyone?
Could you repeat it, the question, please?
Yeah. Where does the change need to come from? Does it need to come from the public? Should it come from the business sector? Or should it come from the government?
Of course, I would say my answer is biased. Since I am from the government, probably the people are really helpless. So it's up to the policymakers like us to decide the entire direction. Even if you take the countries like Sri Lanka, entire business sector and also the manufacturing, whatever the industrial sector, all the service sector, they are all helpless. So it is for us, the government, to take the initiative and direct the different sectors through this turbulent period. Thank you.
I talk really fast before my husband starts talking. But to add to that, and you ask who does that and so forth, I can just go back a little bit to what Naomi Klein always talks about, the disaster capitalism. And her theories have evolved and her studies have evolved, and she has been in these places of crisis where of course, there are two kinds of ideas, what she calls, going around. One of them is the ideas of the extremist capitalist system that take advantage of the situation, but she has also documented the rise of groups getting together and trying to imagine the world differently and really acting towards that to concretize those examples. So I think, yes, of course you need the politics, but what if you have the politics of capitalism totally embedded in your system, like, for example, well, at least many countries have, or the majority. So definitely you need the pushback from people. And I guess my question to Marian was a little bit, but of course to everybody, because I see people from, from everywhere. I'm seeing people here that in our countries, or our peoples, let's say, I don't want to use the word educated, but I don't know how to use, are we ready? Are we prepared? Do we have the tools to create that change? And if you, or the power, let's say, we're not just passive people here, and this will not only affect, let's say, countries of the global south, if we want to call it like that, but it will affect everybody. But definitely where the democracies are a little bit more, if they're even democracies, like, do the people have those tools? Have people thought about this? Or I don't know, how do you see people
thank you
in
very
Sri
much.
Lanka, and so forth, and for all of the countries that are here represented, let's say?
Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, may I answer this question in particular to Sri Lankan context? Because Sri Lanka, if you think, it's very unique. We have, as a country, faced so many challenges during the past 3 decades, I would say. For an example, due to COVID-19 epidemic, until now, we lost, say, about 50,000 US citizens. But if you can go back to few years back, in 2004, due to tsunami, we lost 60,000 of our people within 2 hours. And we had, I would say, a civil war for 30 years. And we have some other disturbances, like during the exact period of time a year ago, we had to face a bomb blastings by extremist elements. So we are a nation that have faced so many challenges, and we came across. We came across through the civil war and through the tsunami and through various disturbances. So I'm sure, though we don't have the technology and the finance, the willpower and the strength of the people will be there. And also in the global context, in the I would say in the larger context, human species, of course, I will go to the philosophical side of this aspect, have survived on the planet Earth for, I have no idea, maybe 30,000 or 50,000 years. Passed through various stages, even if you go beyond that, through the Ice Age also. So, this we will survive, but it's a matter of time. And this is called adaptation. So I'm sorry, I'm not talking about the minute aspect, but I'm at the global macro level, where civilizations have gone and begun, and gone. So this is also a historical event which will pass through. Thank you very much. I think I have answered my question, your question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else?
Yeah, I think we can read out some comments that the participants have said. So no one has really talked about energy, water, and food security in question for weaker economies. If anyone is interested, please go ahead and share your thoughts. But in the efficiency of current supply chains in open economies during emergency situations, Timo has asked actually, does openness to competitions mean by necessity openness to outsourcing practices that undermine resilience of local economies? And another person has commented saying a central problem for supply chains during the pandemic was their inability to continue working. What do you think were the main barriers for continuation of business activities? Does anyone want to say anything about it?
Wait a minute, because your question and then reading at the same time, I'm lost. Sorry.
Okay.
And I can't access, I can't
okay.
write in that system, so
okay.
Can you repeat your question?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, sure. So the main question is, rather to ponder upon, is the efficiency of supply chains in open economies during emergency situations, like right now. And Timo has asked, does openness to competition mean by necessity openness to outsourcing practices that undermine the resilience of local economies? That's the first question. And
just to give a quick idea for people, we have assigned around 20 minutes for each topic.
Yeah.
So if you guys have ideas about this to sum it up, because we'll be moving on to the next topic in a bit.
Yeah.
If anybody has final comments.
it's hard to answer quickly. Each question is so deep, you know.
Yeah.
Like you are very ambitious and expecting a lot from us, I guess.
No, it's okay. It's completely fine. It's an open discussion.
And either way, it is something to just think about even later on to continue.
Yeah.
So now this openness to competition, that is a rather interesting comment, because it's bringing into question competitive advantages and globalization, and then they're asking kind of how does this affect local economies? And I think, yes, we can look at the history and see that globalization has historically affected local economies in ways that damage small businesses, of course. And then on the other side, it has increased the opportunity to goods for prices that people want to pay. So I think this kind of goes back to also the question about our incentives behind capitalism. How can we create an ethical, sustainable, and balanced system that doesn't put the needs of the few over the needs of the many, but there is a balance. So like, yeah, the local economy is an important matter. And I think that is a sustainability challenge that we're going to have to be addressing going forward, is the resilience of local economies and also the vulnerabilities of globalization.
Yeah.
There is a nice comment in the chat concerning this last part that you said, Robert, and also the previous part in which gently Meryl was talking to us, written by Sanuka, that she say, I think it would most probably be the government and public both to manage the situation. The public the public needs to be motivated enough to get back up, and the government needs to assist them. I wanted to highlight this comment because I actually agree with it, and I think is the best way how to come back on the road of let's say before the COVID or after COVID, and how to kind of restart.
Definitely, I agree.
And this situation gives the public a good chance to kind of break the illusion of our separateness, because now we're seeing a situation where we're all in this together. Everyone's being affected on a personal level. It's not just someone in a country far, far away that you hear about. It's everyone. So it's hard for people to turn a blind eye to the suffering that is going on now. And I think this does act to bring us together, and I hope that it can improve our coordination publicly towards well-being and sustainability.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, to that, I added that for that to work, you need to have functioning governments, and you also need to have people trusting those governments. I mean, I just put it kind of to debate here or to discussion because, okay, I come from Mexico, and this is definitely an issue, you know, like I don't think people trust their governments. And and I do think that I just can only talk now, I won't say this, but I do think that we haven't, and I didn't mean to say educated, but we haven't nurtured or cherished our power. We haven't found a way to, in this, of course, people can be resilient in these times and so forth, but this has to be worked on. It cannot only happen when we have crisis, you know? So how do we work towards, I don't know, towards nurturing those kind of powers? And I see here that Timo has also mentioned something about NGOs, not only, I would not only also say it's not only international NGOs, but many NGOs that, yeah, of course, that play a role. And I think that's very interesting to see not only governmental actors and also how to make those governments work towards people. And we see it, for example, already some governments taking absolute power, you know, completely against democracy. I think that it should be discussed a little bit what happens in this kind of crisis situation.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think NGOs are like the voice of the people who are not getting a voice in these matters. And there's many obstacles to the public having their voice heard on the issues that matter. For example, in my own country, these corporations have many lobbyists and they manage to get their politicians in position. So we kind of need a unified message and some kind of underlying framework that guides us in a common direction together, so that we can stand up to these powers.
Yeah, definitely. I have an idea to share. I mean, yeah, a thought to share, basically about what you said. When it comes to some certain governments in the world, maybe not practicing democracy during these times, or before, definitely, but this time is a very specific and a different, completely unusual and unfortunate time. And sometimes in certain countries, in my opinion, I think democracy cannot be literally practiced at this time because of this current situation, due to the risk, the public risk. And of course, I always believe that democracy is something that should be there, that should exist in any government, for them to hear the people out and to understand and move on with it. But in this particular time, I'm pretty sure each and every government will be getting some sort of an international pressure as well. There'll be an international pressure. I think Engineer Merrill just said the governments have two essential parts, that is public officials like us and politicians. So most of the time people misunderstand that. That is very true. I think so, because most of the people see that the politicians working and not the public officials, and the international pressure is taken up from the public officials and not the politicians, really. And when it comes to certain time like this, sometimes the government needs to act in a particular professional and I would say cut and dry method in order to lower the risk as much as possible. But unfortunately, we know that we have seen some governments in the world not acting so. But I think this is a very large lesson to the global system, but an unfortunate one, of course. But I think there's some hope that most governments will be changing for the better in a sustainable manner.
Absolutely. We need an international coordinated effort by all governments, because this is an international crisis. So we need to work together and cooperate for the well-being of the public. So why don't we go ahead and move on to the next section here?
I think that's good. Yeah. So
wow, that was really interesting. We had a lot of interesting thoughts going on there.
Yes, and now is moment of social sustainability. Hi everyone, for the ones that entered after the beginning of the meeting, I'm Davide Vesentini, and I will take part of this part of the speech with the help of Emaka of sharing the screen. Yeah. For the social sustainability, I've been reading a couple more of articles. I took my own sources, mainly from the United Nations website. And as you can see, as first box, I decided to put this short part, which I will read out loud for everyone. And the name of the article is called Everyone Included, Social Impact of COVID-19. And I left the link of the article now in there if you guys are interested to read it. And it actually says, if not properly addressed through policy, the social crisis created by the COVID-19 pandemic may also increase inequality, exclusion, discrimination, and global unemployment in the medium and long term. Comprehensive universal social protection system, when in place, play a much durable role in protecting workers and in reducing the prevalence of poverty, since they act as automatic stabilizer. That is, they provide a basic income security at all times, thereby enhancing people's capacity to manage and overcome shocks. So basically, the main point I wanted to start from is, do you think that, as they say, this crisis will increase inequality, exclusion, discrimination, and global unemployment in the medium long term? Is that anyhow avoidable as a situation, or you guys think that for sure it will happen?
Yeah, that's a really good point, and I think that yes, there is going to be in the short term a lot of changes in business, and that's really unfortunate for many, especially these small businesses and entrepreneurs. They're really getting hit hard right now. So yeah, they're going to have a lot of hardship and changes to face. But on the other hand, also, this gives us a chance to create new opportunities. So I think there will be a lot of shifts as well in the kinds of businesses we do. So maybe in the globalization side, they might find that these supply chains were very vulnerable, and they might want to create more resilient supply chains or start to create things more locally. So yeah, I think there's many opportunities as well. It's definitely a game changer here, and not really. There's never really going back to how it was before, but there are new doors opening if we're willing to see them, and especially virtually. I mean, look at us now. When we started this sustainability open space, we were meeting physically, but we didn't let that stop us from continuing the message. And here we are today meeting virtually, like millions of people are doing all over the world. So I think, yes, it's been very damaging to businesses. It's been very damaging to the public's well-being, but also there are some silver linings. Maybe this chance gives us some time to come closer in some ways that we haven't before and become more creative and innovative.
Yeah, that for sure. And also, as I can read the comment of Meryl in the chat, it says, before all these issues, as I say, the impacts to social interaction will be very dangerous as people tend to move away from each other physically. And also this one will change a lot. For example, I'm from Italy, for who the ones didn't know it. And of course, I'm continuing to have contacts with my own country and reading my own news. It's one of the countries that has been affected more from COVID. And I was wondering, like, it's known Italy as a really warm country. People really social. It's really close. It's really easy to find new people, to make contacts, and we are all those guys that when we meet hug each other and shake the hands and everything. And I'm actually scared that we are going to lose that side after COVID. Now the government in Italy sends out the second part of the lockdown, and it will start open the activities gradually, like in months differences. Like they will start the 4th of May to open the people out, like they will basically cut down the lockdown and people can start to go out, maintaining the social distancing, the masks, the gloves, and they can start to go around. Then the 18th of May, they will start open some little shops. In June, they will start open bars and restaurants. So they are moving all like that. But do you think that people will start to act differently? Do you think that they will change the mindset of how to behave with other human beings in the commune spaces? Like how
Yeah.
that will change?
Hello.
Yes.
So on the same note, like like David said, he's from Italy. I'm from Italy as well.
Okay.
And I have been like volunteering for the past year and a half, like 2 years, as a first responder in Italy for Misericordia, as you might know, Davide. And,
yes, I do.
Yeah, I volunteered for Misericordia di Firenze, the world's first organization for public charity and health. It has been acting on this for 700 years. And it closed for the first time in 700 years for COVID-19.
Yeah.
For the first time in its lifetime. Likewise, as you said, it is going to activate its phase 2 in a few days for the oncoming months. And it's pretty sad to say that none of my crewmates from the ambulance believe that this would be a good idea because of the lack of trust between each other, like you said, like believing in each other, like advancing towards having a social relationship once again with physical interaction. Nobody will trust each other as they did before in a certain way.
Yeah.
And likewise, the risk that comes along with it, you know, some people say that it's too soon to do this and such and so on. On the same note, like I'm from Sri Lanka as well. I'm Sri Lankan. And on the same note, like after the bombing in Sri Lanka, just a week after the bombing, people were eager to buy terrorism insurance and so on. I think, and just like that, people are going to engage in, you know, investing their time and money on health more. But how do you guys think this will work for some countries like the US, where the healthcare system is very different, like socially and like when it comes to social interactions and investing in healthcare systems, I'd say. How do you guys think it will impact some countries just like the US, where it has a healthcare system that revolves around private healthcare like Medicare and Medicaid?
Yeah, I was actually on a Zoom chat yesterday with my family from the US. And so we were discussing this exact matter. And I think that what is going on is people are opening their eyes to how the system is and how the healthcare system is, and seeing that this is not really a sustainable practice, but we're kind of caught in this cycle of the way things are. And I think it's really difficult to change. It can be a very scary thing. And so I think people can be very resistant to changes on the political level, but situations like this are asking everyone around the world to reflect on healthcare, and I think that's very important. And another thing is how our health is in general, the health of society. Someone mentioned depression earlier, and that's kind of like an epidemic around the world, but it's kind of more of a, it's kind of more like quiet. You know, this COVID-19 is a pandemic, and it's shaking things up because it's happening so quick and blatant. But these other kind of social well-being, they've been going on for some time, but it's quite interesting when it's happening so gradual we're also slow to change. So I think my country in the U.S. we are reflecting. We're doing some serious reflections now, and I think especially people like you who are on the inside of the healthcare system, this is really shaking things up because they're seeing firsthand that we weren't prepared as well as we thought we could be for this situation, and it caught us off guard. So yeah, there's a lot of reflecting to do.
Yeah, I would like to add something to something you said right now, like how the pandemic is not actually just affecting people like on what you see on the surface, just like, you know, health and financially, but just emotionally and mentally as well. Because I moved to Australia for my studies. And once I came here, within the first 2 weeks, something that the Prime Minister Scott Morrison of Australia said for the international students was, you have the option to go back home. That was the basic help that was given to us international students who just came here to this country. Like, I'm going to focus on the Australian citizens and the residents, but international students, you came here by showing this and that. Your option, yeah, you can go back home. So for the past, I think 2 months, the only interaction I've been having is, you know, just with the computer, with TAMK. And that's it. I've had nobody to talk with or just to go out. And it's scary because, you know, if the Prime Minister, it's face of authority like that, just says your option is to go back home, like I can't offer you more than that, it becomes a bit scary, and you tend to spiral towards many, you know, intrusive thoughts about how your life is going to go on. Likewise, I have been looking for jobs, and the past few weeks, job requirements have changed in quite, you know, a controversial way. Like, before they were asking whether they had working rights. Right now they're asking whether you have full working rights, asking whether you are an Australian resident, whether you are an Australian, to give the priority to the people of their own country and not anyone else. So you have to sort through that as well. So there's, you know, some sort and profiling that is going on right now in the midst of this crisis. So yeah, it's really scary how everything is changing right now. And like you said, yeah, not being able to meet supply and not being able to meet the supply and demand. I've been told by many of my crewmates that sometimes they didn't have the appropriate PPE, the protection equipment they needed, and they've had to use stuff from the older protocol, stuff that they were not supposed to use. In Sri Lanka, in some government sectors, in some hospitals, doctors paid out of their own salary to supply the material, and via the labor force of the nurses and the attendants, they sew their own uniforms and personal protection equipment. So yeah, people not being able to meet the supply and demand in healthcare systems, that is even more scary, I'd say.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely it is.
Certainly. And you brought up a really interesting point. Now, if you're like an international and you were abroad during this situation, it can be maybe even more scary in some ways than the nationals of that country might experience, because you may be dependent on people from maybe your parents from your home country, and something happened there. And then, like you're saying, the government kind of gave you a feeling like you're not top priority, you're kind of somewhere else, and now you feel uncertain about your future. And I think once again, we need to reflect about how we think about human beings and their value, because you know, when it comes down to it, we all we're people, and we have similar needs.
I would connect myself and move a bit forward the speech, asking you, what is actually the importance of human rights concerning COVID-19? Meaning, with this lockdown, with the social distancing, with all the kind of thing that is better not to do in this moment, more than better to do. Do you think that us as human, are we losing some rights, or some of those are kind of forgotten now?
I think it's a very niche topic, in my opinion. It's a very small area that we have to focus on, really. When it comes to human rights, it's a very sensitive time. That's exactly what I think. Like, in a way, David was indirectly saying that the supply and demand has changed a lot, and the necessity of certain rights might have gone down right now in this particular situation, in my opinion, in certain countries, not all, in order for the countries to be most efficient in this time, because not every government is the same. So I think we can talk about, anyone has any ideas about that, we can move forward about it. Yeah, that's just my opinion.
What does everyone think about how human rights has been affected? Does anyone have any personal...
Or how they will change after?
Well, if I may comment about Finland, at least in Finland, many of our rights have been, let's say, momentarily suspended, at least. And that's where our government, I feel that they are sort of trying to make a careful balance, so that we can take care of those who are more vulnerable at the situation, but also we need to take into consideration freedom of movement and that kind of things that are both in international human rights and also in Finnish constitution. So they are trying to strike a balance. It's not without problems, and it's I think it's tricky, but I think where governments need to be careful is keeping these rights suspended only for a limited period of time, and not giving people too many rights or too much rights to limit those freedoms and limit those human rights sort of indefinitely, which is also happening in parts of the world.
Timo, can you please give an example of what rights have been suspended in Finland?
Like freedom of movement was suspended because the capital area was locked down.
Yeah.
But that has already been loosened at least a bit.
I can bring some example. For example, in Italy, David can confirm also this, I guess, that they reached the 50th days of lockdown. So it's over 50 days in some places that they are, and that is losing of the right of going out, the right of freedom. And of course, that is to kind of save the situation and fight back the virus, avoiding to spread it through other people, because as we know, it's really easily spreadable. But up to 50 days, even more in some other places like Milan or Lombardy region. Do you guys think that it will help? Like, how can people react to that?
Well, if you allow me, I'd like to share about the situation in France.
Yeah.
Because I am French-Italian, and there, people living in small cities or even in the countryside, they need a paper, an authorization to go out, even to just have a nice walk in family, and cycle in the forest around.
Yeah.
And you couldn't get a fine actually in the middle of the forest because there are policemen, checking you. So it's very hard to compare Finland to anything else except maybe Scandinavian countries and maybe New Zealand, because this is so advanced and people have this culture of trusting the government much more than in any other country. Someone was mentioning Mexico. I've been living in North African countries, and it took me time to start to trust the government and trust when people are telling you something, you know, coming from an administration. So at a deep level, but I think this is also part of our social interaction and of building the post-COVID world. We all have kind of inner work to do on these things, you know, trust and honesty and engage in true communication without preaching anybody but this is something we can all do. So everybody's scared. We all have to work heavily on our fears. Otherwise, we are completely paralyzed and we cannot be creative, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if Italians will hug again. I hope so.
I hope so too, actually.
Me too, because I miss it. But there is this DNA, you know, of each culture. And Merile mentioned something very true about adaptation. And this is, like, I think it's really a day-by-day adaptation to what's coming. And the COVID is allowing us to switch maybe from theory to practice for the best and the worst. Because in France, for example, we already see many not very nice things happening and that are affecting human rights. Pretty bad, because the social context was already extremely tense with many, many protests before this crisis started.
And it's interesting that you brought up the issue of trust, because I think that also is going to heavily influence the public's response to the government limiting their freedoms. So, like, for example, in Finland, they have a really low perception of corruption, and I think that's led to a widespread cooperation. But perhaps maybe in countries that didn't have the luxury of that trust with the government, it might have been more of a chaotic response.
I think I would like to put in a word here. At this particular time, I think Ishida pointed out a pretty important factor on the Zoom group chat. She said, "I suppose it should be a good balance." So at this time, I think both the government and the population, the common people, should understand that it's a special case where they need to trust each other in order to get through this. So it's with both parties. I think it has to look at it in a way that, you know, we have to put out all the criticism at this point and keep supporting each other. Otherwise, it does not work. Personally, from Sri Lanka, I know that there was a lockdown, 100% lockdown for 22 million people overnight, and within 2 days there were more than 18,000 people arrested for being outside and disobeying the government. So that itself is like not like it completely disobeys the human rights, but in that sense, because it's disobeying freedom. But in this context, what the government is trying to do is a good thing, because if you don't control, because it's such a small area and you have 22 million people living, and with our culture as well, we have a lot of people going out and greeting each other, and it's a little bit like Italy in a way. It's going to be a mess. So I think there should be a cooperation between the two.
Yeah.
All right, very interesting conversation. Why don't we move ahead to our last section? And we have an interesting guest video to share with everyone.
Yep.
Yes, there will be a video of 6 minutes as introduction to the environmental part, which will be Ali, then the facilitator of the speech. So I will leave him the word. And thank you for being active on this, and feel free anyway to continue comment and add your own thoughts on Padlet. We can always offline going and continue the conversation there. But thank you again to everyone.
Thank you, Davide. And as Davide mentioned, we shall be watching a short video. It's only 6 minutes long. It's a guest speaker from Italy. He's a blogger and he's giving us a short insight on his opinion about COVID on the environment.
Hi, I am Alberto.
Can everyone hear the sound?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
I live in Italy, in Verona, in North Italy, around Lake Garda. Thank you for asking me my contribution in this meeting, and sorry for my English, but I try to talk, to speak with you. I have a blog about ethical living, vegan lifestyle, simple living, decluttering, minimalism, something about respect of for nature and for all the creators. And 3-4 few weeks ago, I wrote something about COVID-19 and planet Earth. I called this text, this post, COVID-19 is the Earth breathing. I think that this because I think we are the worst enemy of this planet. We are dangerous for animals, for nature, and I started wrote about Earth Overshoot Day. I think you know what is it, but is the day when we finished all the sources from Earth. In year 1970 was at 29 December. In 2009 was 18 August. And last year, 2019, was in 29 of July. From that day, we are in debit with our planet about natural sources, carbon, and I think economy and money is not more important than life and respect for creators and nature and our planet, because is our home. We live here, but we must respect this poor planet. For me, this situation is not too bad. It's not good for the problems with health, but I love to see empty streets, empty waters, empty skies. There's no car on the street. There's no boat in lake. I live on Lake Garda, and normally in Easter weekend, here is too much people, too much tourists, okay? There's a lot of cars on the streets. Stop. This year I can't see because I stay in home, but I know there's no people on the street, on lake, and this is better for nature, for air, for our breathing, for fish in the lake, because there's no boat kill them. At this time we can hear the birds singing all day long. not just in morning. Every day, every hour, we can hear the birds singing because there's no airplane, there's no cars, there's no I can some people working with something stuff to make a noise, and is more relaxing and quiet. And I love this situation for planet. I think we must change in this direction. Okay, some people says we want to come back to normal life, but I think we must not come back to uh, old normal life. I think it's better to change, to see the situation, okay, and restart with a new lifestyle in total respect with the nature, with the people, because we are in the same situation. And for last but not least, I think just trees and nature can save us from us. Okay, thank you, and I hope we are the change. Thank you.
All right. So just a quick comment. Our guest speaker, Alberto, he has having technical difficulties and he is not able to join the Zoom meeting. However, he is following up on Padlet, and I left a box on the COVID on the environment part. The title is Questions for Guest Speaker. So if anybody has any questions for Alberto, please write your comments there or on the Zoom chat, and he'll reply to you once he sees them. Okay, so to start it off, my main question is it's built on Alberto's point of view, and that is that we should not go back to how things were before. For example, as you can see in the Padlet page, there are reduced emissions of nitrogen dioxide from the NASA observatory, and you can see a big difference, like a big reduction within the emissions. So I was wondering, what do you guys think? Would it be possible to actually not go back to how things were, or is it inevitable?
Yeah, I think.
I think.
Oh, go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
I think it's going to be a mix of both. There will be one energy, one desire to keep things as they were, business as usual, governing as usual, keeping power, defending privileges. It will not change. It will be waves, hopefully. And there is another wing of humanity, if we can say, that is already extremely resilient everywhere, at the UN, among farmers, among students, everywhere. They are agent of changes. And these people, from what I see, seem to be very prepared to what's there. They are able to keep, they did an important inner work already on their fears. They have hoped for that change, and now they are kind of serving the change with a very high level of honesty, from what I have observed, again, interacting with other entrepreneurs, farmers, and government agency, university, and all this. So yeah, there will be a massive change, that's for sure, and it won't happen in a day. But I am extremely confident because we have seen so much, Merile was mentioning the specificity of the Sri Lanka and how resilient they are. This is something that any country can say. This is actually extremely amazing when you start to list what people have been through. You say, oh my God, how did we survive this, you know, as families, as individuals, as nations, as groups. So I tend, you know, to focus on the small light in the dark room. That's and by focusing on this and bringing more and more light, there is more inspiration, again, coming from the field. I'm totally sold on solution already existing. There is almost nothing to invent except a medicine for that COVID, but otherwise all the rest is widely there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eva. That was such a wonderful point of view. And I definitely have to agree with you on that. For example, just what Ollie is showing us right here, this image from NASA of the nitrogen emissions and how it's changed in, I guess in a matter of in a month or two, it's kind of shown this dramatic change. And now it's kind of like, in one sense, there is a window of opportunity where on the positive side of these events, we are seeing a possible world of change where the air got cleaner. Animals felt more safe to come out and wander. The sounds were less outside, so we could hear the birds singing again. And that might really touch some hearts, some people around the world thinking about listening to the busy street all the time and then kind of just getting back in touch with that gentle sound of nature, and it nurtures us and it makes us feel good. And it's a really good time to reflect on how we've been impacting the environment. And this could be a chance and an opportunity to say that, you know, we want to create a new world, a world where there are less of these pollutions and where we respect the environment and create ethical business models. All right. I love it.
Yeah.
Let's hear from someone else. What are your thoughts in general about how sustainability has been impacted by this situation on the environment? Has anyone noticed anything in their own personal lives or maybe their home country?
Anyone? Okay, Ali. I guess
Well,
maybe.
even though we all seem to have positive feedback and high hopes that it won't go back to how it was and people will be more aware and conscious of the harm they will be doing. But after doing a little research, I've seen from experts' opinions that they're not very optimistic about it, because, for example, companies that they believe that companies that were initially planning to invest some money to go green will no longer do it, or at least for the upcoming year, they won't invest in that because they've already lost so much with the COVID and with the situation that's going around. So at least from that end, people won't be motivated, or big companies won't be motivated to go green. Also, apparently, during the financial crash in 2008, it also led to global reduction, like in emissions of carbon dioxide. And it lasted for a whole year. But apparently after that, when things went back to normal, it increased by 6%. So it would be nice to be optimistic about this, but what do you really know how well it will?
I'm sorry, but I disagree. I think there is a very high level of dependency on negativity. most of the news we have, I'm not talking about COVID here, but most of the time are not focused on what's going on, what's working. It's a habit. It's a habit to spot what's not working, what can depress people, what can reduce the empowerment of the people, and keep them in that mood, you know, of, well, what should I do, or speak up, or go and talk to my, senator or representative, or knock at the door, or create an association to change something. So there are very big investments that are still going towards sustainable solutions, even more. And again, we come back to a definition of what's sustainable. So yes, for sure, it's not going to be a loving and peaceful world tomorrow, that's for sure. But it's very important to be cautious with the experts and who's presenting that, and where does it come from, and is it really useful? Is it useful? I mean, when and for who, what kind of information is useful? And also because we are in this world where we are very informed and sometimes not very wisely. And we are emotional creatures, as well as logical, as well as many other things. So I tend to believe that going a little bit against our habit most of the time, and I include myself, of course, into this, and focus on what's positive, not just, like mantra, but just based on fact and results, can actually motivate people. And this is what's most needed to make a change happen. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was a really interesting perspective, and that's something that's not talked about enough, is how news media can operate on fear and negativity and keep people in a cycle of being worried. And it's almost kind of like you become addicted to the news because you're in fear for your life and you want to know what's going to happen next. And that can go back to social sustainability, and there's times where you just kind of have to, take a step back or try to find some alternative sources, because it can be very biased, and there is a lot of misinformation being spread around, of course, on social media, even disinformation between different nations trying to spread whatever types of propaganda to push a certain narrative. But yeah, that's something that we can forget quite often if we go to the mainstream news, that there are a lot of people doing the right thing in the world, and they're trying to make the change, and they're building the sustainable business, or they're working for the NGO on the front lines. So thank you very much, Eva. Yeah, I even found a news source because it was so negative. I had to find an alternative. It was something like goodnewsnetwork.org, I think that was, because it was getting depressing and I needed an alternative. So yeah.
Yeah, I think Sanuka has commented on the group chat something quite nice and very important to what we were talking about. He said that before this happened, basically people who cared about the environment were people who loved the environment and not anyone else. But right now, people have understood. It's like a major awareness, basically. And that is true, I think. People are realizing how important the environment is and how important the conservation of it is. But on the other hand, like Ali said, companies may it's a huge economic cost for them. So, and it's not as if overnight or just in a couple of months or even years that this entire system can change rapidly, because it's such an interdependent system. So I think to reduce the emissions, at least from most companies, the technology has to be extremely developed, and it's still in a developing phase to come to the market, and the cost is also a problem. So I think, but this is it is a positive outlook, that there is a major awareness going around, but also on the other hand of things, where it comes to the business perspective, how efficient or how influential is it going to be in terms of the parties responsible for the emissions, in order to supply the demands of the public. So if the public changes, in my opinion, about certain things, the demand is going to be less, and the demand will be going for things that have less emissions, or are more green, to say the least. So if that changes, I think, yes, we have quite a positive future in terms of the environment.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Dalia, by the way.
Nice to meet you.
You can only see my initials. But I wanted to say, two things, I guess. One, to this comment about businesses and how they're going to function, and this is a problem for them, and that is very, very sure. But the point about all of this is not going back to business as usual. Is to transform those complete systems that are, making like retrofitting the same system. I think that is the big issue, and that's why everybody is in crisis. Had we another system, maybe we wouldn't be in such a crisis. But the other thing related to this COVID and sustainability, let's say, and if we want to see it, COVID, let's say, or this crisis that we have right now, which became global very fast and noticeable to everybody, in relation to the climate crisis, and how this I also see as a window, as Sanuka has mentioned, to what it could look like when the climate crisis really starts unraveling. I'm going to say unraveling in the richer countries, because it is already happening, and this has, like Meryl was saying, in Sri Lanka, it's a big issue already. In Puerto Rico, it's a big issue. In many countries, it's a big issue, but it's not tangible to everybody, and it's not scary in the same form to everybody. So I do think that this is a way to see, in a moment again, this, because we are already within the climate crisis, and this lets us see what could happen and how governments can act either really fast to create this change, or they can become one thing, for example, that Naomi Klein talks in her book, This Changes Everything, Capitalism versus the Climate, or something like this, is how there can be this, how do you call it, environmental fascism or something like this, where you really get all your rights all of a sudden completely stripped of you. So I do see this crisis, which I'm positive this is something that I'm very positive there will be, let's say, a vaccine. Okay, maybe it takes a little bit of time, but there will be kind of a cure for it, if you want to call it like that. Mm-hmm. But climate crisis, it's very big, and I think this is a way to see that systems have to change. The way we, I would, of course, yes, people are going to be suffering a lot economically, but then let's fucking change our economic system. This is like, come on, let's wake up our eyes, let's make change. And then the other thing I would add is, it's not about how do we see, like, for example, Alberto's video, that he's saying, like, I really like to see that there's no cars, I like the empty streets. How do we work together? I guess now the question is, how do we make that happen? And for me, that's one reason I wanted to join this discussion, because I'm looking how to engage, how do we do change together, because this doesn't happen from my screen at my home. How do we do it together? And I wish, that it doesn't just stay in a discussion and then it's poof, in the air, but how do we actually engage and try to do some transformation? I don't know.
Thank you very much. That was very interesting perspective. And I can say that this kind of goes back to policy in a way. If the policy is not set up to support businesses, to create sustainable business structures, they're not going to. Even if they want to, it might be out of their reach because of the support, if it's there or not. So I think there is a great sense of urgency that governments start supporting policies that promote sustainable businesses. And there needs to be a way that they can get this support in a practical manner. And then the United Nations has created the Sustainable Development Goals. And I think this is a really great opportunity to focus on areas of sustainability that can make meaningful differences in the world. So I would say look into the Sustainable Development Goals, and maybe this can even inspire you to take future action. For example, I'm writing my thesis on trying to create an alternative to unsustainable agricultural practices. And agriculture has caused a lot of environmental damages because of the unsustainable practices that are being used. And also the globalization model is very vulnerable as well to food security. So in that sense, I want to use this Sustainable Development Goals to create a framework to develop some kind of sustainable system, sustainable business model. And this is kind of like one way that we can all take action, is we can start researching how can we make changes. We can start trying to look to unravel the problems. Where are all of these coming from? Why are we getting all of these environmental issues? Is there a way that we can reverse engineer it and find the source? Are we doing practices that are sustainable? Are we not doing them because they're convenient? Are we not doing them because that's just the way that we've always done things? This is the age of the thought influencer. And this is something that we can all do. We can all go to social media and we can post content about our thoughts, and we can get people more aware. And then we can organize events such as this, like the Sustainability Open Space. And this is kind of a great way to get people together, to get thoughts and ideas flowing, and later we find ways to take them to action. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I would like to add to what everyone has been saying up to now, and to answer what Ali has asked here, how to avoid returning to old habits. Like, everyone has been saying that new policies should be implemented by the government sector or be it the private sector towards business plans, implementing new work ethics, and the companies going green, introduction of organic food material, be it that or that. But also we should focus on the macro and the micro, I'd say. It should be a priority to introduce the, I think, the common man, the general public, to principles that can be instilled and made a habit, like educating them on what is green, what is organic, and how it affects. Just saying, oh, that is organic and that's good for me and good for the environment is not good enough. And just a company going green is not good enough. I think everyone should have at least a rough idea about how things should be implemented and what are the things that are implemented on a thing like that. I think it should be a common thing for schools to educate the children, the students, on the how to take care of the environment. It should be a must, I'd say. Just how you're learning the ABC, I think it should be compulsory to learn how you should take care of yourself and the environment you're in. I think it's not too much to ask for, to deserve a better world. for to that become a right. I saying that I deserve a better world should become a right. It should be as equal to, it is to me as it is to Hemaka, as it is to you, Robert. It should be equal to everyone. It is hard for that to be on a one-to-one ratio, for everyone to be instructed and to follow the same thing. Perfection, it's pretty hard to attain, but I think it's something we should strive for, and especially through educational organizations like this, programs like this, via the media, via schools and everything. I think instilling these principled positive thoughts and correct ethics is also important, just as important as a government implementing policies or a company implementing these changes to go towards green. So I think we should focus on the macro and the micro. And that's how we could, avoid returning to all habits, by instilling principles and good, thought culture, I'd say. I think that makes sense. I hope so.
It does.
Definitely.
It definitely does. It definitely does.
I would say one comment to that as well. While we are waiting for the system to change, we need to sometimes work within the system the way it is.
Exactly.
Bringers of change. So I'm in international business, but I kind of brought my own perspective of sustainability and kind of been supporting that within the program and trying to talk to people about that, do presentations, do projects. So yeah, working from the inside and making a change from within can sometimes be what is within our means.
Yeah, definitely. And also, I think I would like to add on to this that to change this, the entire system is because we see a lot of this emissions and the pollution of the environment is in regard to technology as well. And if we didn't do these exploitation of the environment, basically we won't be here today, because we have to make mistakes in order to find something. For an example, I will talk about, I don't know whether you all know, but John Warner is a very accomplished chemist, researcher, and he's one of the pioneering scientists of green chemistry. And in that concept, he is talking about why basically most chemists who actually produce these toxic chemicals and material that's actually polluting the environment so much, having all of these degrees, not have been trained with regard to environmental modules. They have no training whatsoever. So they would create things, but they have no idea how they will affect them up to a certain point. So he says that we must learn from nature rather than try to manipulate nature. So I think this itself is a big turnover, and a lot of it is going into the technology aspect as well. So it's, I think, if you reflect upon it, big change, and it's educational, it's technological, and it involves politics as well. So if all these three things, if I've missed anything, I hope anyone would correct me. In my opinion, the three most important things for the change. Yeah.
Yeah, can I add something to this?
Yes, go ahead.
So just touching upon Hemaka's point about technology being bad. On the other side, we are having this conversation because of technology also.
Exactly.
And like 50 years ago, none of this existed, and our parents read what was given to them on a paper. So I would say, even for us to get access to all of this information and what is going on, to get a perspective, technology has done something really good. I totally agree with like an educated person doing something harmful for whatever obligations that he has to do. But then again, people do question in modern context, they question, they say this is bad. Monsanto is doing this, this is bad. But still, there are so much frameworks, I would say legal frameworks or economic frameworks that you can hide these things. And it's again, no matter how much we try to put policies and all of these things. I think David mentioned we really need to like build a generation. I really don't believe like that after you are like 18 or 20, you can change your habits.
Absolutely.
Few can, but a generation won't change. A generation, like a revolutionized impact would only come from if you like change a generation. So maybe if we can mold coming generations to change their habits and be more conscious, then it would become a norm. Then there would not be demand for certain things. So if there's no demand, there won't be a supply. That supply won't happen, and people, I mean, that's how business operate, right? Like if there's a demand, they try to exploit it by supplying. Or if they even see there's an intention, they try to create that. Okay, like there's a demand, like they plant this seed inside people's head. But if there's a generation of people say, no, this is not good, like let's say like killing, majority of people would say no, killing is bad. So likewise, if there's a certain sentiment engraved, because when we say killing is bad, still killing takes place, but not in large like proportions. That's why we are concerned today. Like if you take COVID, like during a short period, a lot of people are dying. In a society like this, people are concerned. So because the generation is against, I think, people dying or healthy people losing their lives. So I guess, yes, it's more to do with changing generations, and it will take years, but let's be hopeful.
Definitely. I think what I said was not that technology was bad, but
Yeah.
to get to this position, we have done mistakes. And if we didn't do those mistakes, we wouldn't be here. So, but again, like David said, we must educate the generations, mold them, like you said, and the governments have to make the policies in order to do this, and the technology has to develop in a sustainable manner. So if it does happen, I think it will be a better future, basically a less polluted environment.
And I would like to add to that. It's interesting how much influence the mass media has on our perception and behavior. And I would say that, at least from my own experience in the US, in a large way, the mass media has been irresponsible in guiding us to become healthy individuals. And they've done a lot of distraction from the issues at hand. So if we had cooperation with the mass media towards these types of goals, such as sustainability, I think there would be a very large impact. I mean, imagine everyone going to the movie and it's about, hey, look, I mean, many times it is in metaphors, but yeah, educating through the mass media could be very, very powerful influencing aspect. But I see both ways. It's being used for good, but also there is a lot of irresponsibility in the mass media, and they really take no responsibility to the consequences of their programming. And so I think sustainability also needs to look at media, and we need to start acting, or acting even more than we are now.
Does anybody else have any final thoughts concerning
Do we
this
have
topic?
any comments that you want to read from the Padlet or maybe the chat?
We had a few comments for our guest speaker, and he had answered as well.
Okay, yeah, let's go through that.
One person, an anonymous person, was asking about the overshoot day, and if it will. I'll read the question directly. The question is, will it be moved close to the end of the year because of this break, or will it be earlier than the other years, and how could we manage it? And Alberto said he has no answer about the topic, but he's afraid about the restart because he, as he mentioned, because I think some factories and jobs worked more than, I don't get what he's saying there, but come back to a normal economy. I hope the next overshoot day isn't 31st of December, but I think really is different. We are faster than Earth sometimes. And then they continue commenting about that. But concerning also the benefits and disadvantages of COVID-19, we have another comment. Somebody mentioned probably it has slowed down the usage of sources and move a bit closest to the end of the year, the overshoot day. Yeah.
Could someone explain what the overshoot day is?
The overshoot is basically we are in debt to Earth when it comes to natural resources. We have taken more than what Earth can provide. So the idea here is it possible to reduce our resources, reduce our consumption of resources in a way that we will no longer be in debt of this. And yeah, our guess
we must take into consideration that the global population is growing. By 2030, we'll have around 9 billion people. By 2050, it will be around 10 billion people. And so as the global population increases, as urbanization increases, we're going to be taking up more natural resources, and especially with urbanization and agriculture, there will be a lot of land clearing if we don't find ways to more sustainably use our resources.
Yeah, the question that Ali read about the last box, I guess it was concerning the speech of Alberto in the video that we saw. He's saying that 3 years ago, the overshoot day was the 29th of December. Then last year, or 2 years ago, it was in August, last year in July. So I guess it was concerning that now that basically all the world is locked down. Are we still using resources? Are we going to have overshoot day of 2020 earlier last year in July? Are we going to move it further back because we are basically locked down and we are not using much? How it will respond to that?
All right. Well, I think it's been a very interesting session, and we've heard some really good, interesting perspectives from a lot of people. And I hope this helps raise our awareness about the issues going on in the world, and maybe inspires you to take some action.
Yep.
Before yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, man. It's okay. Sorry.
Yeah, before we close up today, I want to give a chance if anyone wants to add any final thoughts, comments, any questions.
Yes. Yeah. I was a bit skeptical with the name of this discussion, SOS, when it started like 5 months ago or something, I don't remember. Now it takes really, it's very meaningful to have this discussion named SOS. Would it be possible to have them once a week? Could we ask
anything is possible.
Yeah, because this is so, it's so important. I think it is so important, to have 1 hour, 2 hours of discussions and of course different point of views and all this, and there are tons of things to discuss, even if we only take your documents today. You know, and having more and more students and invited guests from presenting different perspectives, like it's so healthy. So I don't know.
Yeah, and if we were able to get even like more support, more help to do this, it would be more easy for us to do it more often. So yeah, if anyone is interested in this club and wants to help do these kind of events, please get in contact with us, and maybe we could consider doing these more often if we get enough people to help support.
Yeah,
Of course.
And also, we will be planning to keep a podcast also after all of this finishes. We recover from this.
And of course, if people are interested to help us in facilitating open space or the podcast, is welcome to join our organization team.
Absolutely. And also
open and creative environment.
Yeah, and ask your friends and family or whoever is interested to join and participate in these sessions if you thought that this is good.
I have added my email address to the chat, so if you are interested in getting more involved, then go ahead and copy that email down, and you can send me an email after the after this session, and we can see what we can do. Try to get people more involved.
We can also share the Open Sustainability Space email, if you want.
Is there a website? Because I cannot find it.
We have one on Toonie. Give me a moment. I can grab the. I created a YouTube channel, so we might end up putting the video on there for people to watch and comment. So let me grab this real quick. So I'll copy that email address to the chat as well. And we don't have much content yet, but I hope that is something that we can change. It would be really great if we got an active YouTube account, and like we were talking earlier, how can we make a change? We can do it by becoming social influencers, get more people interested.
And there's a discussion ongoing also on creating a hub for the university, you know, to present everything, and the Sustainability and Impact Club, who has a website, would be part of it, and the SOS, and you know, everything should be part of this, and we should have all work in synergy. Because, for example, Eya from Learning Lab asked me to advertise the SOS on the Sustainability and Impact Club, but I don't know how to do it, you know? So it would be good probably to communicate and see where this is going, and if we can offer to people from Toonie and outside, you know, to join all these sessions.
Yes, this is just like the first test run of sustainability open space. So we hope to grow this and expand it, and definitely gather some more interested people to help us out. So
I'm sure it will grow. I'm sure it will grow.
Yeah, and do more collaboration with your Sustainability and Impact Club. I think that could be really great.
Also, feel free to email us about topics you would like us to discuss or go through.
Or if you'd like to do like a presentation, or like a guest expert we could bring in.
That too.
So yeah, here's the information. You can email me personally, or the Sustainability Open Space. And here is our YouTube channel. There's 2 videos so far from our previous session. And this is what I'm doing my thesis topic on. It's about something called the vertical tower farm. And want to find a way to make an alternative to unsustainable agricultural practices. So this is an interesting video you can check out. All right. Would anyone else like to say anything?
Yeah, some general feedback would be always appreciated.
Yeah, I would like to say a couple of things like I would like to thank you for this opportunity once again. And
Welcome.
the thing is, like an hour ago, I was just studying Newtonian physics. I was just going about my day, revising for the upcoming midterm tests and everything. Right now, I'm just sharing my thoughts with 12 people from around the world with different backgrounds, different ideas and opinions. And some of the ideas tally with mine. Like, I think that is something very special and unique that comes that we have as humans. The ability to share things. Like within this hour, I have learned a lot of things that I can implement from the next minute onwards. It will definitely change my life for the better, I think. So I just want to say, just not that we should all focus on making the big change, but again, focusing on the micro and the macro, like I said before. Like in this small span of time, I have learned so much. So I want to encourage you all to just continue with this, how little you can at least, because it is effective, instilling this positive, thinking and the correct thought process and the education is very, very essential for making the change eventually. So yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity.
Yeah, and we hope we can have you back again sometime too.
Yeah. Thank you.
Wow, what a wonderful experience. I'm thankful everyone came out today, shared their perspective. It was really interesting, and I think we've opened our minds a lot right now, and our awareness is growing. And I really hope that this can lead to making some meaningful changes in the world. And like David said, it can just be as small as what is in your local reach. It doesn't always have to be the big thing, because the small things, they make up the big thing.
Yes.
So we need to approach both levels, the macro and the micro.
Absolutely. And if there's any suggestions for next month's or next meeting sessions topics, feel free to do so. Whatever you want to.
Now or by email?
Either way, it's completely fine.
I don't know if it's super interesting for you, but with the club, I have been working with the students on big challenges. And this is a little bit it's important because they choose sustainable challenges that they have identified as sustainable. And they were very committed into achieving them with the additional challenge of the COVID isolation and restrictions. One of these challenges is that they have created a sustainable student guide of about 40 pages, where they are like inviting students to be more sustainable, in many ways in Tampere, in the university. So it's kind of a powerful tool because it wasn't existing. And the idea of the training, to me as an entrepreneur, was to get students familiar with what it is to work with impact and taking the long run and being ready to do that, which is very different than just taking a job, So I was wondering if we could have a discussion presenting these challenges and letting the students, share about what they did, and having.
We lost you there.
Yep.
Also many topics I can share with you later on if you want.
Yeah, that's a really interesting idea. And if you want to put the link to these sustainability challenges in the chat for people to look up afterwards, that would also be great.
Yeah. And I think it's quite an interesting idea. I think we can think about it. And,
yeah, let's talk more
let's
about
talk
this.
about it. Yeah, definitely. And we can discuss it over email or so.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's been a wonderful experience, everyone, and we'll see you next time. So
Yeah, thank you very much and stay safe.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, everyone. Bye.
Take care, guys. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this and have a good one.
Thank you.
Take care.
Nice meeting you.
Bye.
Bye.
bye.